Good morning to you all once again, and welcome to today's session. So, in the topic for today, we hope to go through vulnerability assessment in the penetration testing, and that's just something that you may easily come across acronymed as VAPT, VAPT. So, whenever you come across such a thing, just know that's let it map in your mind that that's vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. So as part of the agenda that we should be going through, on top of the list, number one agenda after this session is that you should be able to define what vulnerability assessment or VA and penetration testing are. That's the PT part of it. Then you should be able to understand why vulnerability assessment and penetration testing is important in cybersecurity. Next, you should be able to explain the steps involved in conducting a vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. You should also be able to discuss the benefits of it, vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. You should be able to understand common cloud vulnerabilities that are out there. You should be able to implement vulnerability assessment measures in Microsoft Azure, at least for to be precise with what you're covering. Otherwise, you can extend the same concept to other cloud cloud providers out there. Depends on your interest. Then finally, you should be able to understand and implement Azure threat protection to defend Azure identities and other resources against potential threats. So this is just a brief. This should give you a brief feel of what you're supposed to go through, but there's more to it. So let's start by looking at vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, just breaking things apart to see what's really there. So vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. What you need to know about it is that this is just a conjunction of two words. We have two things. So we have vulnerability assessment on one side, and we have penetration testing on the other hand. So we'll be looking at VA and PT in depth, but then let's see what's on this slide. So vulnerability assessment and penetration testing is a comprehensive security testing approach that combines vulnerability assessment, that's the VA part, and the penetration testing, PT, to identify and address cybersecurity vulnerabilities. So you can see that the purpose behind vulnerability assessment and penetration testing is really just to identify and address cybersecurity vulnerabilities that are out there, or at least on the systems that you're working with. So normally there is that overlapping of these two terms, vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. People kind of take one for the other. So someone could be saying vulnerability assessment, yet they mean penetration testing, or vice versa, penetration testing, yet they mean vulnerability assessment. So there are two terms that you can expect them to be used interchangeably, but in a proper way. Vulnerability assessment is on its own, and penetration testing is on its own, as you will see in the upcoming slides. So key terms to just watch out for in this session are about four of them. So one is vulnerability. So a vulnerability itself is just a weakness or a security gap in a system, network. It could be anywhere on your infrastructure, on your IT infrastructure. So that's a vulnerability. When you think of vulnerability, just think of a weakness. Need to share this. So I'll share my entire screen. Okay, so vulnerability is a weakness, as I said, or you can think of it as a security gap. And the next thing is an exploit. An exploit now is a tool or a technique. It could be either of those, a tool or a technique that can be used to take advantage of that vulnerability that has been discovered. Then threats is now like a threat is a the binding link between a vulnerability and an exploit. So in definition, a threat would be a person, or in other words, it would be the actor or a program. Uh, if it's a program, then that's an action. So it could be a person or a program that uses exploits and vulnerabilities to break into a network or a system. Then finally, a risk is now you measuring the likelihood of the threats getting to exploit that vulnerability that is there. So if I can just try to picture it all out for you, trying to see this. So you can just imagine of a triangle here. Gee. Yeah, let me just. I hope you can see that triangle on screen. Please someone to say I do on your side. Otherwise, I'm not sure if it's showing. Okay. So you can imagine of a triangle. Then do you remember how you used to calculate speed, distance, and time? So something like speed, distance, time. So it's the kind of mapping I'm trying to do here. So you can take it that vulnerabilities on one base end, then an exploit is on the other side. So those are two things that are different. Then we have a threat at the top here. And this is actually what will link vulnerability and an exploit. Because really a vulnerability on its own is not an issue. And an exploit on its own is not an issue. A quick analogy of this is that something interesting that I saw, an interesting analogy that I saw is that Windows not Windows operating system, but the Windows on now on in our houses, they are a vulnerability on their own because you some people just like you can find people building their houses and all they want to have is a glass pane window, no grills on that window. So that's lavish for them. So and even other types of windows, but a window is a security vulnerability. So someone can easily try to exploit that window, your glass pane window, to get into your house. But then the window just being there is not a vulnerability on its own. A rock on the other side, um, a rock is like an exploit that can be used on your window. So if someone before we get to someone, rocks being out there on the ground on their own, they are not an issue because they will be there, they won't be moving, they'll keep on being there. But then if someone was to come, take that rock and hit your window so that they can break into your house through that window, then that person becomes a threat. Why? Because they're trying two things. They saw your window is being a vulnerability that can really help them to get into your house, but they'll need a rock to break that glass pane on your window to get into your house. So that's how it's all tied together. Then a risk now is you checking measures. You're trying to look. Okay, we have a vulnerability. We have an exploit that is out there. What is the what is the likelihood of us being impacted by these two things? I mean, once these two things are combined, because you may be having a vulnerability, but maybe you're a company that is lying low, nobody knows about you yet. So you could be better off than a company that is well known out there, and you have a target on your back. Everyone is trying to just get you. So that's how these four things kind of like interact. So let's start by looking at vulnerability assessment. A vulnerability assessment on itself is you can think of it in most cases it will be a scan, and actually you may hear of it being termed as vulnerability scanning, which is still assessment. So it is the process of discovering and analyzing vulnerabilities in what could be a system, network, application, website, etc. So these two towards discovering and analyzing. Discovering, I think that's quite straightforward. Something was not something was unknown to you, and now you found it. It's been discovered. So that's just the idea behind discovering. You didn't know it was there till you found it. That's discovering for you. Then analyzing, um, analyzing is where you have a number of things. So you'll be doing things like categorizing. You'll be doing things like identifying what kind of vulnerability it is. And okay, categorizing, by the you'll be categorizing maybe based on low, medium, high. Some people may want to categorize in terms of critical, different terminologies can be used to do categorization, but the common way is to either use low, medium, high. Then in the process of analyzing these vulnerabilities as well, you'll need to score them, and score them is like you're giving priority to these vulnerabilities because you may come across a number of them. You have a number of vulnerabilities, so you're trying to see which one should be prioritized, which one should you start working on. Maybe because you're looking at its likelihood, it's likely to happen. You're looking at the impact as well of that vulnerability in case it comes into life. You're seeing that it will really impact your business, unlike other vulnerabilities that have been identified. And that is what will help you to prioritize that vulnerability. And also you could be looking at what could be affected, not just the span of that damage, but the assets or whatever functionality that could be affected by that vulnerability in case it comes to pass. So that will help you to prioritize these vulnerabilities. So in most cases, you'll do vulnerability assessment using automated tools or what we call vulnerability scanners. And in other instances, you may as well do a manual scan or just a manual assessment of trying to identify these vulnerabilities. So whenever you're doing automated the automated scan, trying to assess vulnerabilities, you'll be using tools, or we normally they are called vulnerability scanners. You'll be using those tools, and these could be just softwares or appliances that how they work really is they make reference to what we call vulnerability databases that are out there. So uh, just to mention a few, we have the common vulnerability exposures. So there's a database under CV. We have the Open Worldwide Application Security Project, or OWASP Top 10. There's also a database associated with that. We have so many out there. So these they're actually projects behind these databases. So what they do is, through that threat intelligence idea, vulnerabilities are discovered out there. They are analyzed, documented eventually, then they are published for the public to know that there exists a vulnerability out there. And the good thing out of this intelligence, is that they'll give you remediation ways against these vulnerabilities. So but anyway, that would be for you after you discover that you have this vulnerability, and you could try to go into these databases and just see how to remediate against them. Or even some of these scanning tools will help you do that. So how it really happens is that you have the scanning tool, it will be referencing that database, because that database already has the record of whatever vulnerability that are out there. So if it's something that has been discovered already, they are what you call fingerprints, or these hashes. So there will be fingerprints for different vulnerabilities. And these fingerprints actually just help to identify. It's like you having your ID card. So on your ID card, you have your ID number. So if it was a matter of going into maybe a government system and trying to find out who is so and so, because how we'll identify you is through your name, but then on the system it will be easy to just index you based on that identification card. Identification card number. So it's the same thing with these fingerprints on the vulnerability database. They are what we call, I think they are CVEs IDs. So kind of such a thing, CVE ID. So these IDs will be there, and the tools will just be making reference to such information and trying to detect if you have the same vulnerabilities on your system. The other thing you need to know about vulnerability assessment tools is that they will also try to check some of them, depending on the capabilities that they come with. They will also try to check your security configuration posture. I talked about this in a previous session when we are talking about cloud security posture management in Microsoft Azure. So the security configuration posture just goes through your configuration security-wise and tries to see how secure have you configured things. Have you left like telnet or SSH ports open for no good reason? Something like telnet ports on port 23 should be really shut down. It should really just go through all such kind of configuration and help you to see, because if you have an insecure configuration, then that's a vulnerability already. So it will try to help you on that as well. So it is a best practice to schedule regular automated scans of all critical IT systems. You want to do vulnerability assessments on a regular basis. You don't do it once and you feel comfortable. Now it's time for you to relax that everything is okay. No, in the security world, no one is safe. Not at any point. The only thing that could be safe is a disconnected server, a disconnected machine from the internet. But then still, that one, someone could just break into wherever it's it's lying there and steal it. So nothing is really safe, especially on the internet. So you want to make sure that you're doing these security scans, vulnerability assessment scans on a regular basis, depending on what your company can actually support. So who needs a vulnerability assessment? Uh, Basically two things. Any internet-facing business that is serious about their security, because yeah, some, especially for Kenyans, but to say, most of us tend to be in that relaxation mode. So you may find that business is out there, but they really don't care about their security on the internet. So if you're serious about your organization and you're looking forward to being in operation in coming days, they need to be serious about the security as well and run this vulnerability assessment test. Then sometime you may do vulnerability assessments for compliance reasons, and this really affects uh, these abroad companies. As much as they could be, it could be a company that has branched into maybe Africa, a place like Kenya, but since they have their HQ headquarters maybe in Europe, maybe in US, because really a lot of these regulations and compliance things, they are very, very enforced in those regions. Kenya, I think they only come to be enforced whenever there's an issue about it. But anyway, we still have some compliance to work with. But anyway, so we have some of the regulations listed on the slide here. We have the PCI DSS, which is related to the payment card industry. We have HIPAA, that one is related to, should be something to do with why is the one skipping me? Okay, we have HIPAA, we also to the actual word is skipping me on that one. So those are the two things. If you're serious about your organization and its security on the internet, and the other one is compliance, you may need to do this vulnerability assessment for compliance reasons. Yeah. So just a few threats that can be prevented by vulnerability assessment. So this whereby you are doing the vulnerability assessment to just protect yourself maybe from what could have been from a potential issue that, potential threat that might have come about if you never did the vulnerability assessment. So we have SQL injection and cross-site scraping and other code injection attacks. SQL injection, that's when like you adversaries or attackers just uh, try to insert malicious code into that. In most cases, it will happen on the things like registration form, actually the sign-in forms, whereby you needed to input your username and password, then someone inputs a malicious code that your program, if it's not configured correctly, will just take the code unknowingly, and if the attacker did it correctly, then they may have success with whatever they're intending to do on that database. Then cross-site scripting is more or less the same thing, but anyway, on this one, you are um, one way of achieving this attack is to send a link to maybe an unsuspecting user. Then this unsuspecting user will just click on that link, and whenever they are there browsing the internet, that link on the background will inject malicious executive code on that web application, web application that they are using. So you can find more information on SQL injection and cross-site scripting attacks. So that's just one category of threat that you can avoid while doing the vulnerability assessment. Then we have escalation of privileges due to faulty authentication mechanisms. And this is whereby you may be having insecure configuration. Say you want to do vulnerability assessment to make sure that that insecure configuration of your system or your IT infrastructure is at least improved in a way. Then we have insecure defaults. Uh, for instance, this whereby you have software being shipped to you with some okay, we call them, they will be regarded as insecure settings because there are such things as default usernames, default password, and you see this a lot with things like routers whenever you buy them from the shop. So out of the box, you it will be recorded there, it's published out there. If say you're using this router from a given vendor, you can, for the first time setup or initial setup, you can use these as the username and password. So you want to make sure that those default configurations are done away with. You just get rid of them. And vulnerability assessment is one way of you reviewing your configurations on a system and making sure that those default settings are not there. So down below, we have some what you can take them as advantages of vulnerability assessment tool. Vulnerability assessment. Of course, we do. What I will say is that everything is two-sided in this world. So I didn't list the disadvantages, of course, but you can try to just find them on your own. So one of the advantages is of VA, or vulnerability assessment, is it will help you to detect common vulnerabilities in your system. It will bolster your network access against cyber attacks. It will help you attain compliance if you're needed with security regulations relevant to your industry. Yeah, this one compliance really go with what industry you're involved with. So some people some organizations might be involved in the health industry, some in the, like you saw, the PCI DSS, it may be involved in the payment card industry, or in other words, banking industry. So it really matters where you are and the compliance that you may be needed to keep in line with. Then finally, VA can help you protect your data and build trust among customers, because it is really bad whenever you hear of maybe like I think it was T-Mobile, you're losing you're being hacked into. So two things mostly happen in those cases when such a thing happens, when a company or an organization is attacked. One, it's likely that you will lose monetary value, maybe because of ransomware issues, maybe because of lawsuits from the involved prosecutors wherever you are. And another thing that is kinda how can I put this? Something else that you will lose and it will really last for a while is your reputation as a business, because no one will want to deal with a company that is always facing attacks, is always being intruded, attackers are always intruding into it. That's a reputation for you, and it's hard to build a reputation, although it's really easy to just bring down a reputation at once. So you want to make sure that you're protecting your reputation as a company or an organization out there. So types of vulnerability assessment. Yeah, we have a couple of them. As you can see on the screen, we have four listed here, but there's so many other types of vulnerability assessment, and it really depends on what things like what your focus is, uh, maybe other things to do with your budget, frequency of how often the tool that you're going to be used is updated, because like how you may have noticed in something like Windows Defender, that's a tool that is there. Okay, let's just take it as a software that is there within your computer, and it needs to keep your computer safe. But then, how does it go about this? From time to time, that software needs to make a call back to a server on the other side, Windows side, Microsoft side, download some new updates that are there on their databases to make sure that it can really keep you safe from the emerging issues out there. So it's the same thing with these tools, vulnerability assessment tools or vulnerability scanners. They need to be updated as well. And you don't want to use, for that reason, you don't want to use a tool that is not really up to date. So such things could matter when you are considering to do a vulnerability assessment. Anyway, number one type of vulnerability assessment that is likely to be done is what we call network-based assessment. In this one now, you're running the VA on your wired or wireless networks. So in most cases, you'll see people trying to do the wireless vulnerability assessment, looking at maybe how good is the encryption, how good is the password, uh, such things. People just try to see how good is their security on that wired or wireless network. Then database assessment will be kind of focusing on your database infrastructure, and yeah, so it's really is these vulnerability assessment types are just organized in such a way depending on what is being assessed. So network will be you'll be assessing the network database, you'll be kind of assessing the database infrastructure. Then web applications, this one you'll be trying to assess the web applications and their source code as well. Then we have the last one, host base. And this one now spans through workstation, things like workstations, network hosts, and such devices, end host devices on your network. So another thing about the host-based assessment is that you can see here, it will as well try to examine your ports and services, because those are really the entry points that people try to aim for whenever they are doing that. I mean, whenever attackers are trying to remotely hack into your organization. So let's look at the vulnerability assessment process. The number one thing to do in almost every situation is identification. So vulnerability identification or testing the objective that you're having there is just coming up with a list, or basically a list of the vulnerability that you may be having in whatever you're trying to assess. This could be your system, this could be your network. So you try to come up with the with the uh, with the vulnerabilities that are there on that system. Then the next thing that you'll do after the identification of these vulnerabilities is you analyzing the vulnerability themselves. So, or what we call vulnerability analysis. So that's the next phase of things. And in this phase, what you're trying to look at is what is the source of this vulnerability, and what could be as well the root cause of it. So we have an example here, as that the root cause of a vulnerability could be something like an old version of an open source library, and this will provide you with a clear path to the resolution to it. So in this case, what you want to do is upgrading the library. Identifying something is one thing, but then also you want to analyze how did it come about, and because that will really guide you to how you can solve it. Then the next part is risk assessment. And risk assessment here is you're trying to prioritize the vulnerabilities that you've identified in the first phase. So prioritizing, you'll be asking yourself such questions as which system is affected, what data is at risk, the severity of an attack in case it comes to life, the potential damage as a result of that vulnerability as well. Will your reputation be on the verge? Will it be monetary damage? Will it cost you in terms of monetary to do away with that impact whenever it comes to be? Then the next step will be now the remediation part of it. So remediation is whereby you're now implementing the solution on that vulnerability that was discovered. So you want to close the security gaps that were identified earlier. And yeah, so just some few examples. You can introduce a new security procedure as a remediation to your problem, because maybe you notice that previously you had maybe everyone accessing a given room that was high level in a way. Maybe it could be such a thing that you are having people from finance department coming into the IT department. I know that could be for troubleshooting reasons that my computer is not working and all that. But then that could be a security risk for you, and it may really be a challenge when you're trying to later on do some sort of auditing in case something happened within that IT room, because everyone comes in and out. So you may implement a security policy that no one other than only the IT personnel are allowed to get into that room. So uh, that could be a security procedure. And really, this implementation of security, yes. Right. So you need to remember that implementing security is a layered thing. So we have different layers of implementing security, and basically you can say we have three layers. We have physical security, we have technical security, and we have physical, technical, and this final one keeps escaping me at all times. Who can remind me of it? Whereby you'll be using the policies. things like policies, because technical implementation of security will be focused on you using things like computer-based solutions. So this could be using biometric to implement security. And then we have this third level. Oh yeah, it's called I think it's called administrative. Yeah, because now there you'll be coming up with simple things such as just policies to make sure that you're implementing your security restrictions on that within that environment that you're working with. So you need to know those layers of security, because it really matters, because you hear of people even doing when we get to the penetration part of things, you hear of people saying that they as well do physical penetration tests, and you wonder what is that. So this is whereby people just get hired, and they are trying to the company is trying to see how easy is it for you or someone else to come into our company and maybe access a room that is somewhere where they think it's secure and it cannot be accessed. So they could hire people to do that kind of penetration testing. So be considerate of the defense in depth uh, measures. So another remediation step could be just simply as the updating of operational or configuration changes, and this could be on the particular system that you're working with, maybe a router, maybe a switch. So you will need to update the configurations. Then finally, remediation as well could be development and implementation of a vulnerability patch. So patch are really kind of like the way to go in most cases, especially when it's a software vulnerability, you want to patch it. So on screen, we have a number of open source vulnerability assessment tools. We have CIFAS, CLI, OpenVAS, Nessus, Nikto, Nuclei. And you can really dig into knowing how they work and just seeing their capabilities as well. So I'll let you guys go over that. You can check out OWASP.org, because this way I got this listing from OWASP.org. You'll just need to navigate to the available pages on that website, and you'll see what are the open source vulnerability assessment tools, and what are now the commercial ones. And one thing for sure is that open source tools will have limitations on their capabilities compared to the commercial tools, because commercial tools now, they're like more upgraded, they'll have more functionalities, and they will really help you to achieve what you aim to do. So you can try to find out what are the commercial ones. I listed the open source because they're easy to land on. You can something like OpenVerse, if you have time, you can set it up, try it on your own, see how it works. Same thing with Nessus. It's one recommended open source tool that you can also try to check out and see how it works when it comes to vulnerability assessment. So let's look at vulnerability assessment in Microsoft Azure. Um, we have a number of services that will help you with VA in Microsoft Azure. One of them is what you call Web Application Firewall. And these ones will help to protect your resources at that application layer, because that's really where they work best. And it's really the web application file, yeah, it just works at that level, layer 7, the application layer. So if maybe you're hosting your web server in Microsoft Azure as your cloud provider, you want to make sure that at that front end uh, of your perimeter of your network, you have a web application firewall deployed. to protect yourself against things like SQL injections, cross-site scripting, DDoS attacks. But really, it won't really. We have for DDoS attacks, you'll need to use the Azure DDoS protection. So that's a different service. So they kind of need to work hand in hand to help you protect yourself against some of these threats that are out there. Then a web application firewall on its own is just a service. So you'll need to deploy it with a resource on Microsoft Azure. We have three resources that you can use to deploy web application firewall. One of them, and actually the one that is listed here, is what you call an application gateway. So you can deploy a web application firewall with an application gateway. The other resource that you can use to deploy a web application firewall is what you call an Azure front door. And an Azure front door is really like content CDN, content delivery networks in a way. Although it's on a wait a moment, it kind of works like a CDN, content delivery network. The only difference between it and an application gateway, the other difference is actually that an application gateway is more of regional, so it will only work within a given region. But then an Azure front door uh, is it will help you if you have deployed your resources globally. I hope I'm being right there. Let me just double check that here. Yeah, so it's really what I said. So on web application firewall, it will help you on a regional level. Then Azure front door will help you on more of global level, where you have your resources deployed in different regions, maybe in East US, UK, Africa, etc. So that's one service that you can use in Azure to make sure that you are protecting yourself against vulnerabilities in cloud. Then the other tool is Microsoft Defender for servers, and this one will help you uh, with your virtual machine workloads in most cases. So um, you need to enable the Microsoft Defender for Microsoft Defender for servers when you're setting up the Microsoft Defender for cloud. If you did the assignments, you can recall such a thing whereby it's just a matter of checking the buttons on or off. So you need to make sure that it's on. Then also the other way is that the Microsoft Defender for Cloud will go through your resources, so your virtual machines, and if in case these this Microsoft Defender for Server, I think it's an extension. In case it has not been enabled yet, then you'll get this prompt on what you see here. Machines should have a vulnerability assessment solution. So you'll get that recommendation. It's really an actionable recommendation. So you can just go click on that recommendation and install the vulnerability assessment solution for your virtual machine. So that will help you with discovering vulnerabilities on your virtual machines at that level of your virtual machines. And also it can be extended further. You can use it on your Azure Arc enabled hybrid machines, or you can just think of these are hybrid. These are machines that are probably sitting on your on-premises environment, and now you're extending that solution, the vulnerability assessment solution, to even scan these machines. So behind the scenes, this solution, the vulnerability assessment solution that is behind Microsoft Defender for servers, it uses what we call Qualysys. And Qualysys is cloud-based. I think they are focused more on vulnerability assessment. That's what they are recognized for. So it's a company on its own, a different vendor, but I think in partnership with Microsoft, because Microsoft is just Microsoft, then we have Qualys. It does the vulnerability assessment. So Microsoft Defender for servers behind the scenes, that is what is paired with Qualys. It uses that capability of that power of Qualys to do the vulnerability assessment. You see it in a later slide. So the good thing about it is that you don't need a Qualys license or even the account to use Qualys. All you need to do is just enable the vulnerability assessment solution, Microsoft Azure, and everything will be solved for you. Plus, even the payment, you don't have to worry about it because it will be charged depending on the resources. It will be charged depending on the resources that you're using. So this how it works. I'll just go with the marking. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll let you know what it's about, and I even left you some notes here whenever you're going through the slides, maybe to help you recall what's happening. So you'll have your virtual machines at the bottom here. Those are your virtual machines. Remember, they're in communication with something like the log analytics workspace. So they'll have that log analytics agent deployed into them. Then behind the scenes, there's that log pooling from the virtual machines. So logs will be collected from these virtual machines, and it's through those logs that you can tell if this solution is installed or not. So Microsoft Defender will be doing that for you. It will try to check if your virtual machines will be having that solution. If it doesn't have, then the first thing to do is deploying that solution, and that's what you see. Number one is there for to deploy that Qualys extension. Then after it's been deployed, that's just the first thing. The next thing that will happen is that um, logs, or what you call artifacts, will be collected through that Qualys extension. There will artifacts and these logs will be collected from your virtual machines and sent out to they'll be sent out to Qualys from your virtual machine. So this way you see Qualys just being like a separate entity on its own, but is still integrated with Microsoft. So Qualys will take all that data. You can think of it like a sandbox on its own. So it will try to look at the artifacts that have been collected and just analyze them, see if there are any vulnerabilities within these artifacts. Then from there, it will return back what you call recommendations back to Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So it will this is actually the reporting part. So whatever it will be returning, step one is deploying the Qualys extension. Step two will be collecting our
What is it in the form that helps you communicate?
who's talking. It's a bit disrespectful, guys. Anyway, I don't see why you should unmute your mic. Just for us to hear gibberish on your side is such a disrespectful thing to do. So just try to have some honor inside you and respect others as well, even if it's not me. So the first step is to deploy the Qualys extension into your virtual machine, and Microsoft Defender for Cloud will help you with that. Then the next phase, through that extension, your artifacts, so the logs will be collected and sent to Qualys. Uh, Qualys, it's just a vendor that is vendors kind of like specialize in doing the vulnerability assessment. And actually, you'll notice when you go to the OWASP top 10, no, it's not really OWASP top 10. I think it's Gartner. So if you check the Gartner records, you'll notice that it's listed there as one of the vulnerability assessment providers, actually vendors. So they'll do the analysis on that gathered information. And once that analysis is back, be it positive or negative, they will send back a report to Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Uh, so that will be within your tenant. Then you can go through that report and see what are the findings. So of course it will have some recommendations. Then if it's cause of compliance as well, I think you can download the reports and just make sure that you have a safe copy in case of matters like compliance. If you ever do your vulnerability assessment as an organization. So those are the four key things. There's no setting up of a Qualys account. No, just deploying the extension. Microsoft has already kind of like partnered with Qualys in the background, so it will handle much for you. Then the next vulnerability assessment tool that you can use in Azure is Microsoft Defender for SQL. So we've already looked at WAF, Web Application Firewall. It will help you at the layer 7, especially when it comes to things like when you're running web services in Azure. Then we've looked at Microsoft Defender for servers. It will help you with their virtual machines workload. And now this one, Microsoft Defender for SQL, will help you with your SQL servers. So actually, your SQL databases in Microsoft Azure, if I can be more specific there, because we have three ways that you can deploy Microsoft Defender. Sorry, three ways that you can, two basic ways actually that you can deploy SQL database in Microsoft Azure. So we have the infrastructure way and we have the platform as a service way. Infrastructure way is whereby you need to set up what we call uh, SQL virtual machine. So basically, that's where you are starting from. If I'm not wrong, you're starting from setting up a virtual machine, because you'll be in charge of, the security. You'll be responsible for the security implementation at the operating system level, everything from that infrastructure level going upwards. You'll be in charge of it in terms of security. Then the other way is deploying a SQL database through as a platform as a service deployment. And on a platform as a service deployment, we have two ways to go about that. So one way is to use the SQL managed instance. The other way is to use the Azure SQL database. So those are the two platform as a service options that you have to deploy SQL databases. And when you're thinking of using Microsoft Defender for SQL, it's best that you know these will not be applied to your SQL virtual machines. So that infrastructure as a service deployment of SQL database is won't help you with. So you need to be using either SQL managed Azure SQL managed instance or Azure SQL database for this service to help you. Yeah, just know Microsoft Defender for SQL will help you with uh, databases. And also another thing, you can see from the two categories of functionality that this service will do vulnerability assessment. And if I can just go through the definition here, this is a service that can discover, track, and help you remediate potential database vulnerabilities. So that is to do with the vulnerability assessment part. There's the other part of it, which is the threat protection part. And now this one on this category, what to will try to detect anomalous activities. So anomalous or unusual and potentially harmful attempts to access or exploit a database. So there are those two aspects to it. The SQL, Microsoft Defender for SQL, that I'm familiar with. Then so Microsoft Defender for SQL once, and these two features plus rate protection will be available to you. And another thing I wanted you to know, guys, is that protection you also need to enable the auditing feature on the SQL Server. And this is what I was just trying to set up before the class. Can someone just confirm if you guys can see my screen? I'm having my portal on.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. SQL database. So if I navigate to SQL servers, my entry right here, SQL DB, just was looking for something unique to call it. Then when you scroll down block right here, this left block over here, I'll scroll down a bit. I'm looking for is auditing. Under security. So under security, you need to make sure that you enable this. In terms of enabling the Microsoft Defender for SQL, you can Microsoft. You just need to click there, but I think it will load for a while. Let me go back to auditing. So you need to make sure that this option enable Azure SQL auditing is checked on. You can go through the description here. So see, what this helps with is that it will help you with collecting logs, because these logs are really what you use when it comes to future auditing. So maybe an incident happened and you're trying to investigate it. How did it come about? It is these logs that you'll need to use. And if you're not collecting them, then it may be a challenge for you to come up with the right conclusions, if any. Then another thing that you need to know, once you click on auditing, you'll these logs will be stored. So you storage, you can set up the log analytics workspace to be your storage area, and you can as well set up the event hub as your storage. And the event hub maybe in most cases you'll use the event hub if you want to further send out your logs into a third party tool or software. So maybe like in the case of working with SIM tools, you may be having something like a SIM solution that you uh, service pro P. So you may configure the event up to that third party environment, third party tool. Uh, Go back to click on. Oh, you need to you need to do that setting and click on save. You notice that prompt. So that save button at the top there on auditing, you need to just check it. You can see once you turn this on, maybe select storage. They'll to click on save to save your configuration. I'm not sure if this one will show up because the subscription I was using this account. They need to search end of a cloud. Please turn it. Say.
George, you're
So
break.
get to getting
You are breaking.
internet speed. So when you get to kindly turn off your mic if you don't get to Microsoft Cloud, you'll need to go down to environment setting. To work because let me just try to get my Wi-Fi here. In the meantime, as wait for that to load, this is what is that? Leave alone that. So this is one of the CV databases that you can use out there to just have some knowledge of the available CVs. And as an example, what I did is I went looking for I went looking for a CV, and this is one, the local vulnerability. So if I can just copy that and I'll go back to the CV database. So you can see if you want to work with it, the best way is you need to know the CV ID or the product vendor vulnerability type. So if you know if you have the CV ID, it will really help you. You can see the CVSS score. But anyway, let's try this one. So look for shell because that's CV. I'll click on search. Let's see what you'll get. You can close once again. And I think this is it. So CV 2021-4428. So that's this part here is the CV ID. So at this point, you can just copy that. I can highlight this, the CV ID, since I have it, and I can also work with this database. Just click on that link, and it will give me more information on the CV. You can see the CV ID there. Some information to do with it. Then this is the base. Yeah, you can see the score, the exploitation score, and the impact score. So such things are what you need to know about your CVs. So if I can just go back to this other CV database, need to go back to the home page. So this is the home page using CNA there. CNA is just a CV numbering authority. So we have MITRE as one of the CV numbering authority. We have, I think, the likes of Microsoft, these big vendors. Then at this point, what you need to do is just search for the CV. So under CV list search, if there is the place, then you need to input the CV ID. Let's see if this will work. And you can see we're getting some results here. So you can go through the description of the CV that you're looking for, click on whatever link that will be there. You can see the description still. And this is the assigning CNA. For this one was MITRE Corporation. Date when it was recorded. All that information is available to you there. So the good thing and the bad thing is that security administrators can find such information there. They know how to after reviewing it, they'll know how to remediate that kind of CV if they were to maybe do it manually. In case they lack do that, then the bad side of it is that you may be having adversaries of the attackers also trying to peruse such sites and see just to see how they can exploit that CV. So that is the bad thing about it. And back to the portal here. I'll go to environment setting, which is this blender that I'm on. Then I hope you work. So this is my subscription. I'll just try to see if all this can be enabled on a subscription level. So under Defender plans, that's where you'll need to set up all these things. So we have Defender for Defender Cloud Security Posture Management. It's good to have this on because it will check through your security posture in cloud Microsoft Azure, and in case you have those insecure configurations, it will let you know because that's really the purpose behind it. Then we have another posture management functionality, although it's not on this blend. I don't think it's on this blend. It's on some different blend. That one now is for the cloud compliance posture management. So in case you're needed to just comply, yeah, security configurations need to comply with this compliance. These regulatory bodies that are out there. The PCI DSS, HIPAA, and all those. I'll show you where it is. I hope I can remember it. So as you can see on this tab, actually on this blade, we have all these plans enabled. So for servers, this will help you with your virtual machines instances, or virtual machine workloads instances. Then this for database will help you with just protecting your database. So some of them, I just feel like they both do that. They're kind of like capable of doing vulnerability assessment, and but ultimately what they will help you with is what you call threat protection. So threat protection is they will try to flag these suspicious activities on your resources. So for servers, it will be trying to look through your virtual machines workload. And so the list go on. So if maybe you're working with the storage resource, you need to make sure that this is enabled. Containers, as for containers, it changed. It used to be called Azure Container Registries. Right now it's containers. So whenever we'll be talking about that in an upcoming slide, just know that this is the point where you can enable it. You can enable it from. Then we have Key Vault. This will help you with your key management, your secret management, and also your certificate management. So make sure that that's enabled. They're just tailored depending on the service, the resource that you're actually working with. So that way, I believe it's easy to understand. For more custom, I think for more customization, you can work with these columns. So for instance, this is the monitoring coverage column. Then we have this the pricing column as well. So you can just try to tweak. You can go into the maybe the change plan option, see what's available for you there. And have the monitoring coverage. You can try to tweak that as well. So let's look at security policies. See if there's something there. So this is where you can get the compliance settings, but of course they will. I think these ones now they will really charge you for them. Okay, the defender plans you also charge for using them, but in most cases, enable this if you really need to enable them. So maybe trying to look for the cloud compliance. Okay, I can see the cloud compliance. It's CC cloud compliance post management CCPM. In case you see such a name, then just know that's it. So this one will help you with Microsoft Cloud Security Benchmark. I don't know what's about that. You can maybe check the description. And this will help with the NIST compliance. And so the list just goes on, CIS, all that. Whenever you see preview, just know that it's not a service that is guaranteed. So it's there in the working. Then all those compliance, you can just review which one you're involved with and make sure that it's enabled so that it will help you now extend your security configurations to align with with the compliance needs of your industry. So I think that's what I need to show you guys. Yeah. So let's go back to our slide. Uh, okay, in the meantime, let me just delete this resource. I don't think I'm coming back to it. Jesus. So I'll just let that run in the background. Okay. So we're done with the Microsoft Defender for SQL. This is what I was showing you in the portal. Then we have Microsoft Defender for containers. It's the same thing I was showing you on the portal. You can enable it from the containers row there. This one. So this one now will just Microsoft Defender for Containers will apply to your containerized assets. So we have things like Kubernetes clusters, we have Kubernetes nodes, Kubernetes workloads, said so the list goes on. And another thing that you need to know about it is that it works across multi-cloud. So you could be having your resources in a cloud like AWS, GCP. So long as supported, you can as well extend this service or this solution to uh, those uh, those containerized assets sitting on the other side. Then you can also do the same thing to your on-premises containerized assets. So you can see that once again we have policies powering this solution, Microsoft Defender for Containers. So we have policies in the background, and it will just help you with the vulnerability assessment. Then for every vulnerability, Defender for Cloud provides what we call actionable recommendations. So these are just not simply recommendations, but they are actionable recommendations. And actionable recommendations is whereby you get an entry representing that you need to do this, that. So you click on that entry, then on the blade that opens up, it's likely you'll find some kind of fix button at the bottom or whatever point it will be. So all you need to do, it will be, I think it will be indicated something like fix or remediate. So you just need to click on that remediate, and out of that simple step, you'll be able uh, to apply that recommendation. Then it will also out of the policy report that will be sent back for your container vulnerability assessment, you'll get severity classifications and guidance on how to remediate the issue as well. So severity classification will just be some more details about the vulnerability that has been discovered in your containerized assets. Then the last part of this is penetration testing. So the interesting thing is that vulnerability assessment is actually a step towards penetration testing. But anyway, penetration testing is the process of exploiting identified vulnerabilities to help determine their severity, their genuineness, and the potential for causing damage. And it will also give you some more insights if there will be any. So if I can just break this down for you guys, severity of vulnerability, I think we already discussed that. So here you're looking at uh, what is the damage that could be caused by this vulnerability in case it's exploited, and what would be the impact of these damage. So such a thing is what you can consider as the severity of that vulnerability. Then genuineness, this is also important, an important factor to just factor in, cause some of these vulnerability assessment tools will flag something as a vulnerability, or yeah, it will likely flag something as a vulnerability, but once you try to run a penetration test on that vulnerability, you may find that it's not really a vulnerability. This could be because of misconfiguration on that vulnerability scanning tool that you're using. Someone did not configure correctly, so it went flagging something as a vulnerability, but maybe with the environment that you're in, the organization that you're working with, that's not really a vulnerability for you. So it would be also dependent uh, on the organization and what it's in the business is involved with to really tell that this is a vulnerability for us. So some people, maybe some organizations, they are maybe more involved with providing web services. So there'll be more focus on vulnerabilities that are associated with the web services. Then some organizations, maybe they're doing something else and their focus is also quite different. So you want to see to look at well, where are you really playing as an organization, and make sure that your vulnerability scanning tool is set up correctly to avoid these false positives uh, at the least. And in case of such things coming about, then you can run penetration tests to just determine how genuine they are, whether they're false positives or they are true positives. Then the other thing is the potential for causing damage from these vulnerabilities. So that is at that point you're trying to assess what is the likelihood of these vulnerability coming to light. You have the severity, you have the genuineness of that vulnerability. Yes, it's real, but then what's the likelihood? Because some things you're trying to focus into them, and you may find that it's not okay. It could be likely, but on a low level, so you can as well try to ignore it, or as well uh, use that knowledge or that finding to prioritize your vulnerabilities and work on something that needs more attention first. So, like I mentioned earlier, vulnerability assessment is a step towards PT or penetration testing. And another thing is that vulnerability assessment in most cases will be more of how can I put this? What's the opposite of active? Yeah, passive. That's the word I'm looking for. So vulnerability assessment in most cases will be kind of like passive, because you are using tools to run your tests. You don't have to use that human intervention, or yeah, human intervention into vulnerability assessment in most cases, because we have tools that will do that job real good for you. But then in penetration testing, that's where a greater challenge comes in, because you have to involve human intervention. You have to seek cybersecurity professionals, or what you make the term as hackers, to do that PT for you. So that's where the active approach terminology on PT comes in. So who needs penetration testing on this case? We saw who needs vulnerability assessment. Let's see who needs a PT. So one category of people, or uh, the beings out there that need penetration testing is companies that have complex applications and deal with a lot of lucrative data. So why complex applications? Because as the name suggests, these are complex applications, and something complex, it is likely that you don't know the ins and out of that application. So you may be good at configuring some part of it, but then some part of it you just maybe need to get somebody else to do that role, to do that job for you. And yeah, if you're wondering, we have some people who and even organizations that are just there to help you with setting up some of these IT infrastructure. Something like setting up SIM tool is not that easy, because there's a lot of things to be done. There's a lot of security implementations to be ensured that they are just in place. So such complex applications, you want to run penetration testing on them as much as maybe run vulnerability assessment. You also want to add on top of onto your testing, you want to make sure that PT has been done in a correct way to make sure that security is optimum on those applications. Then the other category is businesses that already have strong security features and need to find and remove any loopholes that might still exist. So vulnerability assessment, yes, it will help you with identifying some of these vulnerabilities. But then one cool thing about penetration testing is that whenever you may identify vulnerability, try to exploit this vulnerability, but then in the process of doing that, a lot of times actually people will find more vulnerabilities on a system through this penetration testing approach, because they got into that system maybe in the process of just trying to escalate their privileges, or maybe trying to navigate the system and see what else can be attacked in that course. They eventually figure out that there's this loophole in the system as well. And through that, it will be good for those security professionals to let you know as a maybe security administrator or as a company as a whole, that you also have this vulnerability or this gap on your system. So try to work on it. And yeah, you can as well try to use the penetration testing to just see how good are your security implementation, how good is your security implementation. You may be feeling confident that you've you've implemented the best of security that you can, but then who knows, there is probably a tool that has been cooked previously, and it can overpass or just okay bypass something like an EDR. Like I was watching this webinar on this I think they're Ghana hackers what. So they have their tool that this person was floating on how he has a tool that can almost bypass any sort of EDR that is out there. And remember, EDR are also they also kind of work in this signature-based mode. So they'll be making references to the already published information that is out there, depending on the vendor of that EDR. And that's really how vulnerability assessment tools work. So if there's a tool that someone has come up with and they know that I can use this tool to bypass such a thing as a vulnerability scanner or whatever vulnerability scanner can identify, then you need to make sure that ideally your security features are tested and they are really implemented the best way that you can. So some few advantages of PT. Once again, I'll let you guys figure out the disadvantages of PT when you're on. So PT can really give you a clear understanding of your web security posture, including business logic errors. It can give you a step-by-step direction to remediate vulnerabilities out of the report that will be offered if you are making use of ethical hackers or security professionals for hire. Then it can also help you to do away with to do away with the false positives. So this whereby you get a vulnerability, but then later on you try to put it to the test and you just figure out that this is not really a vulnerability for us, maybe for some other organization. And it can help you remediate support from security experts. Yes, these security professionals that you've contacted, or maybe we even have a dedicated team to do that penetration testing for you. So the ethical hacking thing. They will also help you to give help by giving you in most cases, these are people who know what they are looking for. They are people who know they say in most cases set a thief to catch a thief. So a thief will give you that thinking of a fellow thief. So that's what really is happening there. You need to these guys will give you the ways to go about it so that maybe you can close the loopholes and improve your security generally. Then the last step is for compliance. Once again, like you saw in vulnerability assessment, some companies out there will need to do this, especially I think if you're in that banking industry. Okay, Kenya, I'm not sure how things work, but in most cases out there, those critical industries like banking, I think they'll need to run a penetration testing on their systems, so at least once every stipulated time, and make sure that they have that compliance. That pen test certificate with them for compliance reasons. So let's quickly go through the penetration testing phases. So the first step with the PT is reconnaissance, and this is whereby you just go out trying to figure out information on whatever target system you're looking to break into. So this could be your network, this could be an operating system. You're just out to find information about it. There are two ways to go about it. We have the passive way and we have the active approach. So passive way is whereby you're using public record. You're not interacting with the system. You're just using what is out there, like what you're using this uh I think something like the open source intelligence on the OSINT's website. You can use that as well. There are just a lot of these public record that are out there. You can maybe you are thinking of attacking an operating system, Windows operating system. You can go out, search Windows operating system vulnerabilities that are already known. So you get that information. Then the other approach is the active way. So active, now you are you are making interaction with the system. This could be an organization. You could try to uh, just walk into the organization premises, try to look around. Do they have CCTV cameras? What kind of information can you get from maybe the receptionist that is there? Maybe this person is not that tight-lipped. They may ask something that will help you in your reconnaissance. If it's a system, maybe uh you're trying to probe it, see whatever information you can get out of it. Then the next phase is to do with scanning, and this whereby you'll be using tools to just try and identify open ports on that, or maybe that system that you're trying to attack, and also you're trying to maybe look at the network traffic. So for instance, if you are trying to uh, do PT on a wireless network, you'll do that, try to capture network traffic that is being transmitted to and from that target system that you're trying to get into. So open ports are potentially entry points, like I mentioned earlier, for pen testers. So that's really the key points. They go for points that a lot of people will aim for, because attacking the systems directly, maybe by using these malicious USB sticks, that could be a bit of an overhaul, because you'll probably need someone to get that key stick into the environment itself, and maybe you don't have that person. You yourself, you can't get inside. So in most cases, and also that's a bit risky, because if the company is really doing keeping track of keeping tabs of its records, maybe through the CCTVs, looking at who made access to what at what time, and also the computer logs are being collected at all time, it can really just flag you out when it comes to doing the investigation. And a lot of times people don't want to be flagged out. They want to stay anonymous as possible. So the third step is now vulnerability assessment. So at this point, you're using the gather information from the initial phases, and you're just trying to figure out what can be exploited, the vulnerabilities that you collected, that information. In most cases, you collect almost anything because you don't know what could be relevant. You collect all that you can. Collect everything. We'll need it later. We'll need it later. I think that's the slogan. Collect everything. We'll need it later. So that's what you do in the previous phases. Now at this point, you're trying to see from everything that you collected, what can you work with? What do you need? So that's really what's happening here. And so when determining the risk of discovered vulnerabilities, penetration testers have many sources to turn to. So one of them is something like the NVD, National Vulnerability Database. So like I mentioned earlier, these databases are really helpful. It depends which side you're working on. Is it the ethical hacking, or is it the something like the black hat hackers? So both of them will go to these repositories or these databases to figure out information about the vulnerabilities that are out there, because you can't know everything. You need to make reference from time to time. Then the next phase will be exploitation now. And this is where now you are kind of like delivering your bomb. So You've identified your target. You've seen this how you can attack the target. So this is the part for you to do that. You're exploiting it, and probably you'll try to gain access to the target system, such things. Then the final phase would be the reporting phase. So ethical hackers or security professionals for us, or these guys who are contracted, they will need to submit reports out of their penetration testing. And these reports are really, I think that they are really, other than knowing if your systems can be exploited, you also need people also have to work with these reports, because if your system can be exploited, then it's these reports that will give you findings on how it was breaking into, how you can remediate whatever vulnerabilities were discovered. So such things will all be documented in this report. Then also we have what we call technical briefings. So these briefings are just there to maybe for the board, because some people may not be able to understand technical terminologies that may the pen testers feel like it's common to everyone, but but actually common to their field. So some people are not really familiar. Maybe it's someone from the business world. They don't know much about cybersecurity world. So you need to break this technical briefing will really help in such a situation. So popular pen testing tools, we have once again, these are all open source. We have Nmap, we have Metasploit, Wireshark, Parsuit, and the descriptions are pretty much straightforward. Like for Nmap, you can use that for doing network scanning. Metasploit is like a library of your exploitation tools. You get there some of these exploitation tools that you can use on given vulnerabilities. Then we have Wireshark. It will help you with that network analysis, like you saw in your test. And we have Babs, which will help you with just trying to assess the vulnerability on your web applications. But there's so much more out there. We have the likes of Nito. We have, I think we have things like Rapid7. There's so many out there. Once again, they're also classified. You can classify them as open source and commercial. So these listed here are open source. Here we have some classification of commercial. Check them out. So still on PT, we have the following approaches, and this really like how to go about doing the penetration testing. So you have the tools, you have the steps that you can work with to do a penetration testing, but then what kind of approach will you use to do the PT? So we have three basic approaches. We have the black box, white box, and gray box. And I think you can start getting some idea from the black, white, gray terminologies. So black box is whereby you have close to no idea about the system or the organization that you're going to do the PT on. So you may have a rough idea, maybe because of that contractual purposes. A company approaches you, they tell you we are this and this, we work in this field, or maybe the backend field. We want someone to run PT on us on our systems. So that could be the only clue that you have about the company. The rest, they want you to find it out on your own. Then white box PT is whereby you have knowledge, and at some point you may even be given access to the organization itself, the infrastructure. So I think okay, somehow that's better off, because it kinda reduces your workload, that recognizes first. But anyway, both have their advantages and disadvantages. Then the last one is gray box. So with gray box penetration testing, you're in between black box and white box. So you kind of have information, you kind of don't have information on the target system of the company. So that's really the three key approaches. Then we have these debates whether to go for bounties or penetration testing. Bounties, yeah, both have their good sides and bad sides, of course. So what are bounties? Bounties are whereby you set up a challenge, just like the way you have CTFs, catch the flags. We also have bounties, and bounties are they really span a broad category of things. So sometimes you have bounty for thieves. If you catch a thief, then you'll be paid. I think you've all seen that. So we also have bounties in penetration testing, whereby a company posts out there that we are looking for someone who can do this, and if you're capable of doing that, how to really prove that you're capable of doing that is by you uh, turning out later and just proving that I hacked into your system, and this is my maybe a report, or this is the proof that I got into your systems. Then out of that, you'll be paid for your services. Yeah, so there's really no contract that is binding you to the organization. It's about anyone can do it, even if you are just an intermediary person, you can do it. So I think it should be based on first come first serve, or maybe, yeah, such a thing could be based on first come first serve. So whoever identifies the risk, manages to achieve that bounty first, then they'll get paid. I don't know how it will work when it comes to paying, but I think that's how it will work. So there's really no contracts, unlike when we have now ethical hackers, because with bounties, what the people will be doing the penetration testing for you are the freelancers in this hacking field, and you don't know who could be doing the ethical hacking for you. Ethical hacking is the good hacking, so you don't know who will be doing the hacking for you. This could be a white hat hacker, this could be a black hat hacker, this could be a gray hat hacker. So you really don't know who is doing the PT for you. So that's the risky part with bounties, unlike going the proper way with using these good hackers. Um, so what you need to know about bounties in comparison to PT is that bounties should not be considered as an alternative to PT, but instead take them as a valuable addition to penetration testing. So such that you do penetration testing, because now this penetration testing, because it's contractual, you find that those doing the penetration testing are limited to what they are allowed to do in that course. Maybe the penetration testers can even in the process of doing the PT, they break into their systems. They can even manage to elevate their privileges to more priorities. To more systems within that organization, but because of that contract, it may just limit them that this is what you're allowed to do, such that in breach of that contract, then you may be facing a lawsuit as a penetration tester, or as a company that does that penetration testing. So there are those limitations when it comes to the ethical PT. But then with bounties, these ones now, they have no boundaries. Whatever they can find out, they'll find out, and it will really be up to them to disclose whatever they found out, because you never know what are the intentions of this person. Yeah, so that's what you need to know. Then with that information, to just make sure that you're on the good side. You are, as a company or an organization, uh is it good side or what? I'm losing the word. Anyway, a security cautious business should have a vulnerability disclosure policy with suitable bounties. So that's what you need to know about these bounties. If you're thinking of doing it, then you should have what you call vulnerability disclosure policy. Um, so this disclosure policy is actually there to kind of like kind of like enforce, or I think, yeah, I think I can use the term enforce. It's kind of like they are to enforce how how they discovered vulnerabilities should be disclosed. So as much as you're doing it in that bounty approach, you feel like, okay, I don't have any contractual ties to this company. There is this through this vulnerability disclosure policy, you can use them to make sure that maybe at least to just to just save the company reputation. In case a vulnerability is discovered, they don't go spreading out the rumors that, okay, this company X has this vulnerability. No, come report to us maybe, or or follow this approach when it comes to reporting. And we have a number of vulnerability disclosure policies. So one of them is the responsible disclosure. And I think this is the recommended one. I'm not sure. It will just depend on which one works best for you. So one of them is the responsible disclosure. And with this, what happens is that you kind of like um, uh, come up with a policy such that for those who will be taking the bounty, for those who will be working towards the bounty, doing that penetration testing because of that bounty, then if you discover the vulnerability, then come to us, report it to us, and give us allow us this window of time before you can publish the vulnerability. Because yes, people want to feel proud of it, that I discovered this vulnerability, like just feeling proud of it. So to read more information about that, that's why I left this page open. So there's this take target page on vulnerability disclosure, and once you scroll down, we have the following types of vulnerability disclosures. We have the responsible disclosure, we have coordinated vulnerability disclosure, we have self, third party, vendor, full. So all the types of disclosure, you can choose from them, and whatever works best for you, you can implement that in your bounty, in your bounties. Then also, as you saw it in VA vulnerability assessment, in PT as well, you need to do regular penetration testing. So let's look at common vulnerabilities in cloud. Okay. So the number one vulnerability in cloud and in most systems out there is misconfiguration. So what is really misconfiguration? Misconfiguration is often caused by a lack of knowledge of good or secure practices, or lack of peer review from your DevOps or infrastructure team. So there are two parts to it. One is the lack of knowledge of the good practices. So this is whereby you don't know, you don't know, as a security professional, you don't know how to go about implementing these secure configurations on the system that you're working with. Then the other part of it as well could be lack of peer review. So maybe you have someone that you introduce into the company, maybe at an intern level, and you're just trying to show this person the ropes within the company. This how to do this how to do that. So it comes to a point that you feel confident in this person that much that, okay, this person can do the job. Then you start letting everything to that person, and by that you won't be reviewing whatever they have done. So that lack of review would be an issue. It's always good to double check matters. So make sure you're following the secure or good practices when it comes to ensuring security configurations, and you're also trying to make reviews on the configurations that have been made, and that's how to avoid misconfiguration at the highest level. Anyway, some of the misconfigurations or forms of misconfigurations, we have insecure identity and access management, or IAM. As I told you earlier, IAM is really one major point that you need to know when it comes to implementing and ensuring security. So Insecure IAM is whereby a user or a service of your infrastructure has access to resources they should not be able to access and or do not need. So for instance, like I was telling you about, you could be having someone from maybe, I'll just go with the simple analogy to the for this. So maybe say you have two departments, the finance and the IT department. So one of the policies, okay, without the policy first, you'll find that maybe the finance team can come out of their block or their room and get into the IT team and even choose to work from there because maybe they feel like there's an extra room there, they have friends there. So such a thing. But then once you put in policies, you can restrict that because really there might not be a necessary reason for this person to migrate from their department room into the IT room to work from there, simply because it's the same company and they are friends. So such a thing, you want to make sure that your users or services have access only to the right resources and uh, whatever the only resources that they need to be working with. Anything else, it needs to be cut from them. So that's the remediation part of it, and this is what we call the principle of least privilege. Least privilege such that you want to make sure that you only have the right access, not too much, not too little, the right access, maybe even for the right duration of time, maybe even for just that moment when it's needed. Yeah, such things are involved when it comes to least privilege. Then another remediation to insecure IAM is you using third-party tools to scan and detect misconfiguration of IAM policies. So a tool like Cloud Native Application Protection Platform can be used to just identify such misconfigurations. Then also you want to frequently review access and privileges as access requirements change over time. So in Microsoft Azure, when it comes to reviewing the success, you can use what you call we can use what we call access reviews. Let me just see if I can find it here. So I'll go to the dashboard here. So if you just type in access review, it'll be here. So um they they are we have PIM or privilege identity management, and then we have access review. All that is under what we call identity governance. So you can see that we have this tab here on the left block. Then this area here, okay, that's where you get the access reviews. So ideally, what happens with the we'll be talking about PIM eventually. What happens with the access review is that you uh you set up your environment. I mean, this access that you've given to the identities, you want to review them from time to time, maybe after a month time. And that could be really important. Maybe say if you're having this incoming and outgoing employees, someone works for you like for 1 month and the next month the person is gone. Maybe a contractor came into the company to do something and now their time is off. So you can use that access review to always double check if this person is still using their access. And that way you'll be avoiding what we call stale access. So stale access is whereby you have an access granted to someone and yet they don't need it. And even you may find that this person is not even there. And maybe a friend because this friend knew about this person and they knew about their person and all that. Yeah, people do share persons in the usernames. So you may find a friend because this person because the colleague had access to whatever resources in the company, and the colleague left, that friend may attempt to use that those credentials to access whatever the colleague was accessing previously, and that could be harmful to you. So you want to make sure that your access your access and privileges are being reviewed from time to time. And what will help you in Microsoft Azure is access reviews and identity governance. So and access reviews, you can we have basically two options for and access reviews. So you can either revoke these access or privileges, or you can extend them. So when you do the review and decide to revoke them, that means you are taking away that access from that identity. It could be a user, it could be an application. Then when you're extending the access, that means you are allowing this identity to use that access or privilege until probably the next time you're doing that review. It could be in a month time. Then we have a couple of options that you can set as well when doing the review. When it comes to who will do the review, so you can set the user to do the review themselves. So this could be, for instance, a contractor. You want to set the access review such that the contractor will be the one to decide if I'm still requiring this access because I'm still around. Maybe the contract was to just go for 30 days and something came about, so the contract needs to be extended. You can set it in such a way. You can as well set an administrator on a higher level. Maybe it's a finance department, so you can set the access reviews of the employees within that finance department to be reviewed by the finance whoever is in charge within that department, because they will it's likely that you as an IT administrator, you won't know if someone in the finance department came and left or such a thing. So it's best to just leave the access review on the hands of such a person. They'll be on the floor. They'll know who's there and who's not, so they can do that for you. Then the other option is that uh, you can set the access review to be done based on system recommendations. Um, Before we get to the system recommendations, you can set default measures for the access review. Maybe just extend when it gets to that time. Maybe you've had a discussion already that your contractor will be extending some 30 more days. So you don't really need to ask that person to do the review because you have that knowledge prior to the access review. So you can just set a default measure for that, which is to extend the access, or even you can choose to revoke it when it comes to that time, if depending on what the judgment is. Then the fourth option is to set the access review to be reviewed based on the system recommendations. And when it comes to system recommendation, it will try to check through the past 1 month. Is it 1 month? I think it's the past 1 month, if I'm not mistaken. So it will go through the past 1 month and look at your login logs or the login logs of that identity. So has this person logged in within the last 1 month? And if, for instance, if the person has not logged in, you can as well assume that this person is long gone from the company because maybe they need to come into the work environment for them to work. They can't work remotely. So if it's such a thing, then the system is likely to revoke such an access from being extended. So when it comes to that, you're using the system recommendations, you can revoke access, you can set no change. No change will just allow the extension of that access privilege. Then so you can do the no change, you can extend access, you can revoke access, and what are the options? Yeah, I think the last option is you can set yourself the determinant of as the determinant of that access review. Then still on identity and access management and identity governance, we have what we call the PIM. So PIM is just privileged identity management, and it's one way of making sure that you are ensuring governance of the access that you're giving your identities and the privileges. So how PIM works is that you set it mostly works with these privilege roles, and privilege roles. What you need to know is that they will affect the Azure the Azure tenant itself, not the resources. So things like the help desk role, we have security administrator role. There are those Microsoft Entra ID roles that are termed as privileged. So from time to time, people may as well need these roles. Maybe I'll go back to the contractor example. So this contractor may need to access something within with that privilege role. So you want to make sure that that is available to the contractor. Otherwise, he or she will not be able to do their role. So you will get that role that your identity will be working with, and make sure that it's configured under the PIM. So just like you saw it with just-in-time access for maybe things like virtual machines, you can do that with role as well. So you get the role, you configure it, and maybe enable it to be eligible. You can enable the role to be just eligible to a user, or you can assign it permanently to a user for a given duration. So the way to go in most cases will be through the eligibility way. So that way your identity will be eligible to that role. Maybe it's not a role that they'll need to use throughout, maybe just like 3 hours in a day or on specific days. So you set it up in such a way that when it comes to those given days or those given time that the identity will need to have access to that role, they can request for the role to be assigned to them. Then you can set up an approver. Once again, maybe someone from a given in charge of a given department, or maybe you yourself, you can set yourself as the approver, and you can set things. You can even go further to set the justification reason for that role. Why do you need to work with this role? Then once it has been approved, of course, it will be you can as well tweak the time allocation of that role. So how long will this pass? I mean, how long will this role be assigned to the identity? Is it 2 hours? Is it 1 hour? Is it a full day? Depending on your customization, there's a lot you can do there. So let me just show you this other dummy stories. So for that one now, you need to type in PIM or privileged identity management. You won't go into governance. You'll need to go to Microsoft Entra. It changed. It used to be called Azure AD PIM privileged identity management. So and privileged identity management, you can review this tab just to see my roles. So those will be okay. For instance, me here. Those are the roles that are assigned to me. Then my requests. Uh, the request that I think these are the requests that I've sent out. But anyway, my requests, approve requests. So approve requests whereby you just click on that blade to see if there are any pending requests that you as an administrator probably you need to approve for your users to have that role. So this is the point. Actually, one thing I like with Azure is that notice once you open a blade, so there's this currently we're in this quick start blade. So this like your number one stop. Then within that blade, if you just review this tab here. It's called Get Started. So it says here manage a privilege access, and this is actually the way to go about it. So manage access, activate just in time, discover and monitor. So those are the functionalities that are the capabilities that come um, with this service. Another thing is that it can sometimes, depending on whatever service you're trying to use, it can also help you without set it up. I thought this one could be having it. But anyway, this where you'll go to Microsoft Managed Roles. Microsoft Enter Roles. So once you click on that blade, you can see that you can assign, then you can activate. Actually, the first step is to assign, then activate, then approve requests. Then you can do auditing later on in case there is that need. So for instance, I can click on this assign eligibility. Let me see. Or if not there, you can as well come to this point here under manage. We have roles. So you can click their roles, and there'll be a listing of roles here that you can work with. So you can see all these roles: compliance data administrator, desktop analytics administrator, all these roles. Those are what we call privileged, the privileged roles. They are associated with the tenant at the tenant at the tenant level. And not the resource level. So we have resource roles, and we have the Microsoft Enter roles, previously Azure AD roles. So depending on the role that you work with, so maybe I want this application administrator role. This one. So I'll just click on that application administrator role, and this blade here will give you the eligible assignments. So who's been assigned to it, like who's eligible for it. Active assignments will tell you who's currently using that role from your assignment list. Then expired assignments, that tab will just let you know that it will give you kind of like a history of who has used the role before, and now their time is up. So under eligible assignments, that's where you can start. You can just add assignments, and you need to click the membership for that role. Is it? I think you can even say the group settings. So under that tab, membership, that's the resource type directory. The role itself is there. You can change it to that point. Then the scope type is directory. Let's see if there is any other option. So just leave it directory. Then you need to select a member that will now be eligible for that for that role. So I'll click on no member selected. Then you can assign it to all users. You can assign, but there's no point assigning to all users. You need to that's the essence of customizing it. So you need to select your users, or maybe choose a group if you have any. So I can choose that user, and I'll click maybe select, and yeah. Then the next thing, let's see, also the next thing. So this is the tab where you can make it either the role eligible to that user group, or make it an active role. So eligible, that means that they will not start using it immediately unless they request it first, and that request becomes approved. But then active will just out of the box will the role will be assigned to that user or group, and they will start using it. So that's the only difference. But in most cases, you want to go with the eligibility approach. Then maximum allowed eligible duration is permanent. So this just tells you how um, eligible is this person to that role. Is it permanent, or is it just a one-time thing? So I'll leave it as permanent, unless yeah, in most cases maybe you have someone, once again, a contractor is just working for a single day. You don't know if this person will ever come back to the company. You can tweak that to make it something that a role that would be only eligible to that user for on a single instance. Because who knows, the next time maybe you'll need to set up someone else in a role for someone else. But then if it's someone with that frequency of working in the company, you can make that eligibility as permanent. And also people in various departments, because they're still with the company, you can make that eligibility as permanent. And then this is just, I think, signing. So it will go ahead and create that role for you. Then you can see right now that we have under the eligibility assignments, we have this user printed out, and that's just the principal name. And on the far right column here, what you can do is either to remove or update that user from that role. But anyway, there's something else I need to show you. So uh, so I'll think I'll go into this settings tab. And you can see that we are now under role setting details for the application administrator. I'm just waiting for it to load. So this way now you can tweak things, like really get to make usage of the functionality that comes with with the PIM privilege edition management. So you can see that the activation maximum duration is currently set to 8 hours, and technically that's a whole day of working. So you can customize this down to something that you want. I'll need to click on edit there first. So you can just go into the or change all these all these settings to something you prefer. I'll just close out of that. Yeah, so I can just take you through this briefly. This one thing that you may need to change the activation maximum duration, and then on activation require. So right now it's set to none. You can set this to require something like a justification reason. Uh, Okay, yeah, this is the part. Require discretion on activation, yes. And then require ticket information activation not necessary. Then approvers is the point to set approvers. Currently is none. You can set an approval for that. Um, you can set the expire active assignments after how long. So there's just a lot that you can tweak inside here uh, on this given role. So to change on a role level, you need to go into the settings tab. Then let's just click on update here for Prenatal. Let's see what. So this would actually, you can just do some changes of that role in relation to the user, not the role entirely. So I think that I hope that makes sense for you guys. I'll just remove this user because I'm not interested in oh, I should have shown you how it goes like when that user requests that role to be assigned to them. But anyway, you can try that on your own. It's not something that tough. Okay, so that's a lot of story there. And I think it's 11:27. Should we continue or what?
Yes, we can continue.
Because I was hoping to do this thing in a single sitting, but there's just a lot to it. Plus, I'm also trying to go into the identity and access management topic that you covered earlier. You guys can just bear with me. I know it may take a while. We still have like some 16 slides left. I'll just try to go through some of them in briefly whenever possible. Anyway, uh, so that's to do with insecure identity and access management it could be in your cloud environment, um, it could be in your on-premise environment. It really matters. It really depends on where you doing it. But identity is everywhere when it comes to security. So it just depends with where you're doing it and uh, functionalities come with the system that you're using. How good can I mean how granular can you do your customization? Then public data storage. So there are some misconfigurations associated with public data storage. So these ones I won't show you a demo on it because it will really take time. But anyway, what you need to know is that in most cases like say when you're using the Azure storage services. So these are things like the blob services, the blob storage account, or the file storage account, such things. You'll find that how they're deployed in most cases is that they will be deployed as a some kind of a public endpoint, meaning they can be accessed from the internet. Anyone with knowledge of that IP address can try to reach that service, as much as you may have made some security configurations in the background. But anyway, that's how they're deployed. And for something like Blob in Microsoft Azure, and also the S3 bucket in AWS, you can enable its resources, whatever things that you're storing there. So for container services, is it not real container? The word is escaping me. So blobs, you'll be having containers in the actual blob. Blob is just the data itself that you're storing in that storage service. So you can enable either the blob at a blob level to be its availability to be public or to be private. So that idea of you enabling that storage service to be either public or private really matters, because if you enable it to be public, yeah, it may be public such that someone can only list things, but then that's still risky for you, because if in normal cases you want it to be available in public, and you want the public users to be able to list whatever is within within that storage. So maybe there's something out of that listing, there's something that was interesting for one of the users out there, and this user is an attacker in their own ways. So that could be an inspiration for that user or that attacker to start looking at how they can attack your storage service. So it's actually recommended that if you really don't uh, have to make these storage services public, then don't do that. Just make them private, such that they'll be using they'll be using private IPs. Remember, private IPs are not routable on the internet, and yeah, from that perspective, it will just not be able to be accessible in the public. Anyway, some more remediation to that is that you can use third-party tools to scan your infrastructure and quickly detect this type of vulnerability. So whether ideally it will just let you know if your storage services are available publicly or not. Then always have your data storage set to private by default for your cloud resources, just what I told you. Then when using Terraform or other infrastructure as code framework, make sure to have the infrastructure as code files reviewed by another member of your team. So you can see that double checking. And it's actually a security principle. I just forgot the name, whereby you need to have two people associated and two people doing this when it comes to doing something. So it's the same activity, but two people. I forgot the name for that. So it's more or less the same thing happening here, because you have someone doing it and the other person just reviewing to make sure that everything is done right. At least if the first person did something wrong, then the second person can notice it and correct it. So those are the two key misconfigurations in cloud. But we still have other categories, and the recommendations or the remediation to these other misconfigurations include the following. Always use HTTPS. Ideally, always use encrypted um, encrypted protocols. So HTTPS instead of in place of HTTP, you want to use FTP in place of SFTP. You want to use TLS latest version. Don't not to mention um, the comparison between TLS and SSL, because SSL is outdated. So you want to make sure that you're using TLS, the latest version of TLS, which is WAMP. I think we have right now it's recommended to at least be using the 1.2 version. Um, Then you also want to restrict all inbound and outbound ports if not needed for a given machine content on the internet. So like say if it's not really necessary for, you saw this with virtual machines, it's not recommended to have this like say port 22, these management ports, port 22, 389 for RDP open on the internet. And if really you have to be working with those ports, make sure you're working with something like a managed service like the Azure version to just help you with that. Then you want to make sure that you're using a tool or a service in cloud that will help you with the management, uh, with the access management to use your API keys, your passwords, your secrets, all that. So for instance, when it comes to AWS, we have the AWS Secrets Manager. And when it comes to Azure, we have the Azure Key Vault. Those two will help you when it comes to secret management, depending on the cloud provider that you're using. And next we have insecure APIs. So that's another vulnerability in cloud. So insecure APIs is really interesting because a lot of things nowadays they are being deployed. They're being deployed to work remotely. So APIs are really what tries to come in come in between to make sure that everything is functioning correctly. So just starting with the web applications, these websites, for them to run and for you to access, there'll be that involvement of APIs and all that. So remember that this traffic, say you're trying to access the services from a given web server, you could be having legitimate users accessing it, and in the background we still have some people with malicious intention trying to access the same services. So it's hard to differentiate, and because of that, you want to make sure that as much as you have things like actually, before I'm going ahead of myself, you just want to make sure that your APIs are secure to protect the legitimate users. So the common forms of malicious requests by APIs, we have, once again, we have the likes of SQL injection, and I think the scripting attack could be a part of that as well. Then we have taking advantage of a bad access control as a malicious request to the API. Yeah, and this one you will see it with things like SQL databases. Uh, when it comes to the identity, actually authentication ways to these resources or these services. Then we have targeting a vulnerability due to an outdated component. So components such as software libraries could be updated. So you want to make sure that you're using libraries or these software libraries that are up to date, runtime environment that have been updated, and that's really how to make sure that your APIs are protected in cloud. Oh yeah, actually these are the remediation. So two things there: using web application firewall once again, and implementing DDoS protection when it comes to Microsoft Azure. So web application firewall, as you know, it will be working on that layer 7. So then the DDoS will just help you against DDoS attacks. And another vulnerability is lack of visibility. So it says here that as the use of cloud services increase, so does the scale of your infrastructure. So because it said that you really can't exhaust that, you really can't exhaust that cloud provisioning of because it's like a space that is just out there waiting for people to use it. I don't know when it will be said that okay, now people can't use the cloud. Cloud providers are out of space for more users. I don't know when if that will ever come or when that will come. And because of such things, I mean, because of such advantage, you find that people, organizations, so long they have money for it, they may want to keep on deploying more and more infrastructure into the cloud environment. Okay, that's good, but then because of such a thing, you may find yourself losing track on what has been deployed. So it's likely that you may forget them or just lose track on what has been deployed in the cloud. So as a remediation is that make sure that you have that visibility in in what is this in a cloud environment. We'll get to that shortly. And these are the threats. Uh, Actually, these are the remediation. Sorry, went ahead of myself. So you want to monitor for and detect threats continuously, and you want to ensure visibility in your cloud infrastructure. So I think Azure really helps with that. So when it comes to these dashboards that are provided, then you also want to implement tools such as the CNAP once again to help you shorten the response time in case of a breach. Because yes, you may know that you may know that you have given resource that has been deployed in the cloud environment, but then because you slightly forgot about it, it may really affect your response time to maybe updating that resource or such a thing, upgrading it, such a thing. Then we have lack of multi-factor authentication. And MFA, as you know, it is the use of third party, I don't know if to say component or what, to just make sure that you authenticate yourself. Normally, you have the username and password requested from in most cases to sign in. Then MFA will now involve adding an additional form to authenticate your users or your identities. So this could be things like it's actually based on something you have, something you are, and sometimes even you may hear of where you are, your location. That could be another factor of authentication. So it's recommended to use MFA whenever it's provided, and really that's the way to go. So if you have maybe MFA that is provided through SMS, push notifications, authenticator apps, make sure you're using make sure you're using that to make sure that you are avoiding vulnerabilities as well. Then finally, we have distributed denial of service attacks as another vulnerability in cloud. So this happens a lot, and I think you guys can relate to that with what happened previously with the attack on things like Safaricom websites. I mean, Safaricom services like Safaricom, Citizen, and all that. So it's a really big vulnerability in cloud whenever you're looking at denial services attacks. How to defend against these for Azure, there's what we call Azure DDoS protection. So that should do when it comes to DDoS protection. You also need to be careful on the SKU or I think it's called storage. Ideally, just think of it as the tier of the DDoS protection that you're using. I think we have different tiers to it. Before you get there, you want to make sure that in case you think of renting your services in cloud, make sure that you're working with the cloud provider that is offering the protection against these DDoS attacks. So AWS has their own, they'll be using the AWS Shield. Azure has their own, it will be using the Azure DDoS protection as a service against DDoS attacks. So we have a chart here just comparing vulnerability assessment and PT. You can go through that. Finally, let's look at this last section on Azure threat protection. So previously we looked at vulnerability assessment and what are the tools, how you can go about protecting yourself against these vulnerabilities in cloud, particularly in Microsoft Azure. So with on the side of penetration testing, because now you're trying to look at the threats with PT, not just vulnerability. So in Microsoft Azure, we have a number of services that you can use we can use to just make sure that you're protecting ourselves from these threats. One is the Microsoft Entra ID. We have Azure Monitor Logs and Microsoft Defender um, for, for cloud. Sorry. So Microsoft Entra ID. Once again, this is the one with a lot of content to go through. So what you need to know is that you need to be using the P2 edition of Microsoft Entra ID. You can try to check them out. We have, I think, 4 editions, and they were updated recently. So the one that you'll need for this Microsoft Entra ID protection is a P2 edition. Previously, Microsoft Entra ID protection used to be called AD Azure AD identity protection. I think that was the name. So in case you come across an article that it's named that way, Azure AD identity protection, just know it's more or less the same thing with Microsoft Entra ID protection. The reason behind this name update from Azure AD to Microsoft Entra ID and all those Microsoft Entra new names is because uh, Microsoft was just trying to come up with the it was trying to distinguish its Active Directory domain services to now Azure AD. So that's why I think that is the key reason as to why they had to change the name. At least that's what's indicated out there. So with Microsoft Entra ID protection, this is just a service that you can use to make sure that you're protecting your identities. And when it comes to identities, just think of them in terms of your users, your groups, your service principals, your managed identity, your managed identities, and under managed identity, we have user managed identities and system managed identities. There's just a lot to talk about there. So that is what this Microsoft Enter ID protection is all about, protecting those identities. And how does that happen? It uses what we call machine learning algorithms and heuristics to detect anomalies and risk detection that might indicate that an identity has been compromised. So machine learning algorithm, as you know it, that's kind of like based on AI. So it's on the back end. You're not really involved with that. So this is like the smart way, the dynamic way of protecting against threats that may want to affect your identities in cloud. Then we have heuristics. Heuristics are just like rules that you come up with. So those can be set by you, the admin, the security admin yourself. I think I'll show you a demo on that. So we have two key features that can help you with Microsoft Entra ID protection. You have the identity protection capabilities. So just some of the ways some of the ways that Azure Identity Protection can help secure your accounts and identities include detecting user and sign-in risk. And this is really where to start from. We have two types of risks when it comes to identity protection in Microsoft Entra, Microsoft Entra ID. So we have user risk and we have sign-in risk. Let me just go back to the. But are you guys comfortable with this? Because I'm trying to brush up to wind up the session, and I think some people might be sitting there in the background with some green face. Are you comfortable with this?
Yes, we are comfortable.
Okay. I hope you speak for many out there. Um, so what should I show you? Oh, yeah, user identity protection. So for that, you need to go into okay, this is just the dashboard. So you can click these two dashes there and go down to Microsoft Enter ID, this option. That's where you can find it. Or alternatively, you can just type it at the top there, Microsoft Enter ID, and this is the option you're looking for. So click there, and this is the blade that you get. So yeah, yeah. So under this tab, I'll just take you through some of the few things here. You'll need to go down to security on the left block right here. So you need to click on this option, security. So once you click there, yeah, you can just go through what's documented here. So we have this area to focus on. So we have the protect and manage, these two key areas, protect and manage. So we have conditional access, identity protection, security center. Actually, what I'll be talking about here is the conditional access. Then we have this other area, authentication methods, then multi-factor authentication. So when it comes to heuristics, this way you can set it. So under authentication methods, I'm just waiting for it to load. And come to things like password protection right here. So password protection is one thing, is also a classification under identity protection, Microsoft Entra ID protection. So password protection will help you in coming up with just give me, yeah, there's this option here, enforce custom lists, custom band lists. I think this is even straightforward. So this will help you to do this. One, you can come up with you can come up with your own passwords that are banned, because it's we already know that we have some sort of dictionary attacks that can be carried out on user identities, such that maybe you have a username and there are these common passwords that are out there already, and even you can come up with your own. So you as an administrator, you can come up with these passwords that you feel like they are common out there, and you will, from that list, you will use that list to block those passwords, such that they will not be used by your users within that tenant or within your organization. So you can come up with, I think the maximum is 1,000 lists. I mean, 1,000 entries on your list. So just come up with 1,000 passwords that have been banned. And the cool thing about this custom ban feature is that once you enable it, so say you have a password like password. So this is something that I want to ban. Once you enable that, that you put this to the list, then what Microsoft Entra ID will go ahead and do for you, or at least Microsoft Azure will go ahead and do for you in the background, is that any password that kind of looks like this, something like this password, the other alternative is something like this password. And then we have this as well with a 0 RD. So all these, I don't know, I forgot the names, but all these other forms originate from this password. So Microsoft Entra ID will come up with this I'm missing the name, but whatever entry you've input like password, it will just come up with these other forms out of that name that you've input as your entry, and all those forms will as well be banned. So there's no way your users will be banned as well from using such an entry password as their username, I mean as their user password, and all these other forms out of that main one password. So that's a good thing with it, and you can come up with with 1,000 entries to just in your custom band passwords. Then another thing is that we have global custom band passwords. So that one, you know, you don't have to set it up. That one is applied defaultly by the platform for you, so you don't have to worry about that. Then another feature when it comes to password protection is you can extend it to your on-premises environment. So that is your Azure Active Directory domain services that are running within your on-premise environment. You can extend this functionality to it such that if users were to come up or set up their passwords within that on-premises environment, then they will not be able to use these passwords that you've banned from being used. So I hope that is clear. So I'll just close out of that, and you can try to review other things on this blade as well. So that is to do with password protection. I'm here to get to users and identities. So I think that's where I'm headed. So for users and identities, I'll just go to multi-factor authentication, this option right here. So once you click there, and you get this tab. So you can let me just see where it is. Okay. Give me a moment, guys. I think my eyes are not seeing clearly. Okay, let me close out of that. It's a bit confusing. So that is multi-factor. Here it is. Identity protection. This is what I'm looking for. This right there. So that is where you can set up things like user and sign in, some sign in policies as well. So normally what you need to understand is that there are 4 things to understand when it comes to user and actually identity protection. When it comes to identity protection, one is the detection type. We have actually the risk type. We have user risk and we have sign-in risk. We have detection types. So we have two of those. We have on real-time detection and offline detection. We have severity risk levels associated with this with the identity protection. So the risk level, we have low, medium, and high. I think that is pretty straightforward. Then the fourth aspect to understand about identity protection is what is it? The policies. So what you see on this blade is actually the policies themselves and protect here. So you have the user risk policy and sign-in risk policy. So before we go there, let me just help you understand what is user risk and sign-in risk. So user risk, you can just think of these as risk associated with things like your password or username. So it only affects username and password. That is user risk. Then sign-in risk goes a step further to now showing that there is a risk now associated with this identity, because someone likely has one of your users' password and their username, and they're trying to make access to whatever environment they're trying to make access to. So that's the difference. User risk is whereby you could be having maybe your password, your user passwords have been leaked out there, and maybe your usernames as well, they have been leaked out there. But then that is just leaking them. No one is using them. So once someone tries to go using them, that is when it gets classified as sign-in risk, because now they are trying to use those credentials to make access to your systems or your infrastructure. So that's really the difference, user risk and sign-in risk. So those are the 2 types of risk. Then the detection mode, the detection types, we have 2 key types of detection. We have real-time and we have offline. Okay, before I go to real-time and offline, detection, the detection type, how you can think of them is detection is just the measure of that latency between when something happened and when it was reported. So we have something like a user risk when it happened and when it was reported that there's this user risk out there. Then we have something like sign-in risk. When did it happen and when it was reported or when it was flagged in the system. So offline for the offline detection, That will take an average of 2 to 4 hours. Then for the real-time detection, it will take its latency is between 5 to 10 minutes between when it happens and when it's reported in the system. Yeah, so that is a second aspect. We're done with the difference between the user risk and sign-in risk. We're done with the detection types. The next thing is the risk level, which is just low, medium, and high. So, for instance, if you have user risk that is classified as high, then it's likely that you need that specific user whose credentials have been leaked out there. You need them to change their password, something like their password, because you may I think it's just sufficient to change your password and like going through the process of coming up with a new username and a new password. So you'll just require them to change their password. Then if it's something like a sign-in risk that is classified as maybe medium, you may require that person to authenticate themselves with an MFA through the MFA way. So yeah, and actually when it comes to the risk level, the recommendation here is that by Microsoft is that user risk, the threshold for user risk level should be high. Okay, you want to make sure that it's high to have a catch balance or a balance between the user the user, what is this? Is it called? Yeah, user experience and your security implementation. Because if it's a situation whereby yes, we can implement security at its strictest level, but that could be a bad user experience, because maybe every time a user tries to access a different app, they'll need to use MFA. Every time a user tries something new, they need to authenticate themselves. So that could be a bad user experience, and you don't want that. So ideally, you for sign-in risk level, you want to make sure that your threshold is medium. That's ideally what you can work with. That's if it gets to that point, then if the risk level is detected to be medium, then you want that user to authenticate themselves using an additional way, which is MFA. And even if it's high risk, still it will apply because the threshold there is medium. So that's just it. And now for under the detection type, we have different let me just go back to the slide here. The name is escaping me. So that what is detecting me? I mean, escaping me. So let me just find you some of these use and sign-in risk detections in Azure. So what are these? I'm not sure if it's this one, but anyway, I've left you guys some of these links in the slides. I don't know if it will be able to be accessed. Let me see if it's right here. So, okay. So we have the following sign-in risk detections. Then we have user risk detections as well. Let me just see. Yeah. So let me just give you an example. With the user risk detection, we have leaked credentials. So you can see that this one, the detection type is offline, and risk leaked credentials is whereby you just it will find out if your identity credentials have been leaked out there. So things like passwords, a combination of usernames and passwords that are already out there, and even the passwords in most cases. So we have that. We are sign-in risk. Sign-in risk are the these are the ones that are really a lot, and you need to know them, by the way. So for instance, you need to know what is the typical travel, what is the non okay, this one is new, anonymous token. I'm not sure about that. um uh, a typical travel, need to know that. Malware linked IP address, you need to know about that. Basically, all these you need to know them. You can just, I think you can click on these links and they let you, they give you more information. So if I can just give you an example, a typical travel is whereby you have you have someone signing in from one point at this time. Yeah, because really timestamps are very important when it comes to doing the investigation, because this detection is like working an investigation. So you have a user signing in maybe from Nairobi, then in like an hour, that user is signing in from a very far geographical area. Um, okay, a good example is Australia and Canada, because those two places are like I think it's like 24 hours away, close to 24 hours away, even if you're taking a flight. So there's no way you have a user signing in from a place like Australia, and in the next like an hour, that person, that same identity is signing in from a place like Canada. So that's what we call atypical, because it's unusual travel. So the next thing, I think something else I can, malware linked IP address is whereby you're having an identity trying to sign in from an IP address that is associated maybe with, it could be that IP is associated with something like a botnet. So that's a malware linked IP address. Then we have other things like password spray, impossible travel, all that. You need to have a rough idea of all these risk detection types and what they mean. So I'll go back to the portal here, and so we have those the risk levels, the risk type, user risk, and sign in risk. Then the detection types, whether offline or real times, those are just to do with the detection part. So after detection, what you want to do is good that you have a responsive measure on what to be detected. So that responsive measure is the fourth aspect. I mean, the fourth aspect to identity protection, and that is where policies come in. Policies, how to really understand them, is just a combination of conditions to be met and the controls to be applied. So, for instance, you can say that if a user is signing in from a place like Nairobi, and that user is using a Windows operating system, then you can allow access to that user. But then if a user is signing in from a place like China, because you know for sure you don't have users in China, or your organization, I mean, yeah, the employees from your organization don't have anyone working from China. So if you just see anything coming from maybe a place like China or anywhere else from Nairobi, then you know that that's already that should be flagged. So you can set up such policies, conditions to be met, and then controls to be applied. Is it we have different controls that can be applied depending on which which sign-in, I mean, which risk type you're working with. So for user risk, I think yeah, this is the blade I'm on currently. You how to go about it is that I'm under the user risk policy for those who are not seeing. So you need to come up with their users who this policy will apply to. I think you can as well come up with the exceptions as well. So if I can just click on all users, you'll see that it has a number of things to set up. So all users, or just select a few individuals who will be who this policy will apply to. So you can select all that from there. Then you can set up exclusions as well, which users not to be um, oh, this policy will not affect which users or groups. So that's to do with that. And then, okay, the next thing will be to now set the level that you are ready to accept uh, in terms of the user risk. So uh, for actually what you'll go for is sometimes it's good to go with the recommendation, but then depending on the organization, once again, it will be, because we have this internal security implementation requirement, I mean security requirements. So you can set it to low and above, you can set it to medium and above. You'll be the one to decide really. So other than that, you set up the access, I mean the control. So this the top here are like the conditions and then the control to be applied. So you have the block access, which is the default one. Then you have the allow access. And then you have three options actually: block access, allow access, and the third option is to allow access but require password change. So depending on maybe you I come back here and say, okay, so I'll come back to low and above. I'll set the user risk as high. So I want any detection that is associated to the user risk and it's categorized as high. I'll just click on down there. So I want anything detected as high. I want that to be that user to be, yes, allowed access, but before you allow access to that user, I want that person to change their password. So you can set that up. I'll click on done, and then the next thing you want to do here is to enforce these policies. So defaultly, it will be under disable. So as much as you come up with all these conditions and the control to be applied, and you don't check this button here to be enabled, then it won't work. You need to make sure that it's enabled and click on save later on. So that's to do with the user risk. Remember, user risk is whereby it mostly works with it mostly kind of like affects your password. So is your password compromised? Does the user need to change it on and such a thing? Then with this identity protection. So I'll go back to now sign-in risk policy. It's more or less the same thing. You come up with the users to that will be affected with this condition, with this policy. The sign-in risk policy that we are ready to accept. So for sign-in risk, you go for, it's likely that you go for the medium level sign-in risk. Then for the controls, it's likely that you'll go for the allow access but require multi-factor authentication. So ideally, you'll allow that person access, and you'll need them to use MFA to further justify that they are really actually validate that they are really who they claim to be. So yeah, and so that is just one of the facets and identity protection. The other thing about identity protection is this third option that you see here. So under protect, is this option here, multi-factor authentication registration policy. So as much as you want to set up the policies, it's good to make sure that you make sure that all your users are registered at the initial phase of just signing into the portal. So I think you can relate to this. Or whenever you sign in for the first time, you might have got a prompt that you need to update your password. You need to, okay, if your identity was issued by an organization, it will tell you you need to update your password. But then what I'm really talking about here is there's that part where you need to set up MFA. So that's always required. It should be required actually on that very initial phase of your user signing up. That first instance that they sign up, or I mean they try to sign in, then they should set up MFA at that point. And this is where you can set that requirement. So once you click on the multi-factor authentication registration, this is what I was actually trying to show you that I think it was on week 6 or 7. So once you click there, you need to select the category of users that this applies to, this policy or this rule applies to. So you can exclude yourself if you are the administrator and you feel like, okay, you can be excluded, but it's just good to make sure that everyone is included here, so that everyone can set up. Or by the time you are including yourself here, make sure that you've tested your MFA and you can really use it to sign in. Otherwise, if you enable this, you say all users are required to have MFA, and maybe you just try something fishy out there, and you are okay, you are signed out of your account, then you go trying something fishy, and it may require you to use MFA, and maybe you don't have MFA set up already, so that will just block you out of your account, and it will be a long process for you to reclaim your account. So make sure you've set up your MFA, you've tested it out. Remember, if you want to set it up, just go to my signings. my sign is that Microsoft Info, something like my sign is Microsoft Info. So one of these sites, my sign is either this one or the second one. So you just go there and set up MFA. It's my sign is Microsoft. Okay, I think it's the next one. This aka MS. Let me just try. No information is available for this page. Okay, so that one. Let me try this one, the third one. So you want to go there, make sure you set up MFA, and it's actually good to have different types of MFA. Okay, this is something else, but anyway, it should be something my signings. So you want to make sure that you set up MFA of to for you to use an authenticator app. You want to also set up MFA to use your phone number as an alternative MFA method, because you could lose your phone and that phone will be having your authenticator app inside. So remember, once you lose your phone, that's it. Your authenticator app is gone. Yes, you can download a new one, but then it will be another process to set it up. You don't have your password. I mean, you may have your password. This is a new device. You need to sign into it to set up that MFA. It will require you to authenticate yourself through the MFA that you had initially set up. So remember, you don't have your phone. It will be troublesome for you as much as you had set up MFA. So the way out of that would be to use something like your phone number as an MFA, because it's easy. You can renew your phone number. So by renewing your phone number, every message that was to be sent to the phone number that got lost to the previous phone will just be sent to this new phone SIM card that you're using. So that would be a way out of such an issue, because it happened to me before, and that's why I really have to insist on this one. So make sure that you selected the right category of users that this rule should apply to. Then this part here, you need to make sure that it's checked. So controls require Microsoft Entra ID, multi-factor authentication registration. This should be compulsory. Then make sure once again that the policy is enforced. And finally, you need to click on that button save. It will be blue for you if you're setting it up. Yeah, so you may be asking yourself, why do you need to set up MFA on that initial or first time access? There's what you call self-service password, SSPR, something like self-service password remediation. Let me just double check the name. Yeah, self-service password reset. So this is actually a feature that whereby it allows users to reset their password on their own. So back then, the traditional approach is, in case you're blocked out of your account, then you need to reach out to your IT administrator. Maybe you need to initiate a ticket for that. That my password is blocked. Now I can't sign into. I forgot my password. Such a thing. Or maybe my password has been flagged as a risky password. I need to change it. Or maybe my sign in is just risky, and I need to change things. But then, because for you to do that change requires MFA, and you had not initially set it up when you're signing in, then it may need you to go the long way of reaching out to an IT administrator, who will now go back to the portal probably and enable that resetting for you. But then that is a lot of work for you as an IT administrator. For the user, it could be okay, because maybe they don't really have anything bothering them about that. But for you, you may be having other things to do as an administrator, and you don't want to be running into such cheap things. So a way out of it is to make sure that everyone is registered on that initial phase when they are signing into to the portal, at least. And by that, whenever they are maybe blocked, or at least something like the sign-in risk policy has flagged their identity or their sign-in attempt as risky, and it requires them to set up, to authenticate themselves using MFA, then that will be okay. They'll be able to do that because they had set it up earlier. So yeah, that's what you need to understand. So I'll go back to the slides here. I think I've talked enough about identity protection capabilities. So there's that detecting user and signing risk. I've already talked about all that. Then there's the investigation part of it. Um, yeah, so it will just give you reports. Investigation is just about giving you reports and all these logs go back to the portal. So you can see here we have the report section. So you can check reports on uh, what it is, risky users, risky workload identities, risky sign-ins, and all those reports are just there for you. You can try to investigate them. So yeah, Microsoft Enter ID will help you when it comes to protecting your ID, your identity in Azure. So one thing you need to know is this here, identity protection generates risk detections only when the correct credentials are used. So correct ideally means that it is the right credentials, and these credentials, for them to be right, then they need to be having an identity associated with those credentials, because you could be having a username and password and there's no one in that organization, or at least in your tenant, that is associated with those credentials. So there's that link that needs to be there. So if incorrect credentials are used on a sign-in, it does not represent risk or risk of credential compromise. Yeah, so that's what you need to know. And right here, this is just let me see where this is. So this is the Azure Active Directory, and you can see we have a report here. So we have new risky users detected there. Then we have new risky sign-in detected there. So you can just click on whatever this reporting once you have them on the dashboard there, and it will help you to do your investigation, or at least have a report with you that you can present maybe to the overboard. So the other thing that function a service, I don't know if to say service or functionality or capability under Microsoft Entra ID protection that you can use to just make sure that your identities are protected is the Microsoft Entra privileged identity management. So this one I talked about it already. I won't go back into it, but just know once again, it can help you when it comes to monitoring access, getting the audits from the logs on the history, and then you can also set alerts, get alerts, and out of this role, what is this? Out of this access of your users. And the next thing that will help you with threat protection is Azure Monitor Logs. So I won't go into much details about it because there's really not much that I put on this slide. Uh, Azure Monitor is just there. It will help you with monitoring of your logs, really, to give you insights probably of your things like the performance of your resources, the availability, and also it can extend to their security as well. I believe you can recall where you need to navigate to see your Azure Monitor. So for Azure Monitor, just type in monitor, and all this will be available to you depending on your environment setup. Then the last thing would be Microsoft Defender for Cloud. And I had showed you that already when I navigated to Microsoft Defender for Cloud earlier. And there's just a lot you can set up there. You can set up protection for your virtual machines, containers, databases, storage. There's just a lot you can set up there. And it's really like the one security point, the one thing that really gives you protection in Azure. That is Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So previously it used to be called Security Center, and there's also something like Azure Defender. So all those two terms were bundled into one, And right now we have Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Yeah, so that has been it, guys, for today. If you have a question, then feel free. Sorry for taking all